Hi, it's Mrs. Banneker, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about active versus passive voice. So let's start with why we want you to use active voice. You might have seen this in feedback on a paper or seen it on a rubric. And really, we tell you to use active voice in your writing because it helps you create clear and concise sentences. And we also want you to use those really, really strong, powerful verbs. And when those verbs are active, they are even more powerful in your writing. On the other hand, passive voice, because you have to add in some extra words to make it work, it can sometimes make your sentences a little awkward or wordy, which can end up making your writing a bit unclear. And we don't want our writing to be confusing. So first, let's talk about what active voice is. A verb is active when the verb, the doer of that verb, the actor, is the subject of the sentence. So here are some examples. The toddler tormented the cat. Our verb is tormented. The actor of that verb is the toddler, and the toddler is also in the subject position of the sentence. Research shows that studying can lead to higher grades. We have two subject-verb combinations here, and both of our subjects that are italicized are the actors on those underlined verbs. The research is doing the showing, and studying, which looks like a verb but is actually acting as a noun here, studying is what leads to higher grades. And then lastly, students believe that they should be allowed to use cell phones in class. That underlined verb believe, if we look at who holds that belief, it's the students, and the students are in that subject position. So we all have, all of these sentences are in active voice. On the other hand, passive voice is when the noun that's in the subject position receives the action or is acted upon. And in this kind of construction, our actor or our doer of that action word, it can be present in the sentence or not at all. And then passive voice is also going to contain a form of to be, one of those to be verbs like is, was, were, been, be, are. Just because a sentence, though, contains a to be verb doesn't necessarily mean that it's in passive voice, but it's one of those clues that might help you identify a sentence in passive voice. So let's look at those same sentences from before and what they look like if we change them to passive voice. The cat was tormented by the toddler. So the cat, that's the noun that receives that torment. But now we put it in the subject position. And notice that we have to add in some extra words in order to make that sentence clear. And notice that we could also just say the cat was tormented and never know who tormented that cat. It is shown through research that higher grades can be caused by studying. Again, we have to add in a lot of words for that to make sense, and that can make for kind of an awkward sentence. And then it is believed by the students that cell phones should be allowed in class. So students who hold that belief, notice they move a little further in the sentence. Notice that all three of those sentences too, if we're going to include the actor, whoever's doing the action, we add in the word by. So again, it's another word that we have to add in, which can lead to some wordy sentences. So here's how we change passive sentences, passive voice, to active. First, we want to find the doer of the action. If you can find the verb and you can find out who's doing that verb, then you can put the doer in the subject position and change it to active voice and eliminate some words. So here is an example of a sentence in passive voice. I want you to read this sentence, pause the video, and take a moment and see if you can change it to active voice. Okay, so let's find the verb. Our verb is being read. That's our whole verb phrase. And who is doing the reading? The class. They're all the way at the end of the sentence. Okay, so we find those things and it's going to help us adjust this sentence a little bit. So to change it to active voice, we move the class to the subject position, and we can eliminate one of those words in our verb phrase. We still need the is for is reading the book, but we don't have to say being as well, so our sentence becomes a little bit more concise. Now, there are some times where passive voice is totally acceptable to use, and it's a stylistic move that a lot of writers make for specific reasons. And here are a few reasons why you might want to use passive voice. Because the action comes first, if you want to emphasize that action over the person doing the action, you might use passive voice. After a long debate, the new cell phone policy was endorsed by the student council. Here, maybe we want to emphasize that endorsement and not so much that the student council did it. So we might use passive voice here. If you want to avoid naming an author or a source, maybe to keep somebody's identity a secret, or to maybe have some tact and not throw somebody under the bus, then you can use passive voice because you don't have to mention that doer. The feedback was somehow misinterpreted. A teacher might say this to a class to avoid naming the students who misinterpreted the feedback. And then sometimes passive voice can create an authoritative tone. If you look at the sentence, visitors are not allowed after 9 p.m., it sounds a little bit more firm, and it's almost like they have so much authority they don't have to say who it is that decides these rules. So here are just some tips on active and passive voice so you can identify it in your writing. If your teacher told you that he or she wanted you to do some extra practice, there's practice below. You can also do it if your teacher didn't instruct you to do it.